Ms. DeAndre Jean-Baptiste, and the Inspector of Pumps, Mr. Ian Francis. And the last time that we were on air, many of you might remember that we had a very engaging discussion, and it seemed as though we did not have enough time. And so I'm grateful that Ms. Jean-Baptiste is here again to field your questions and to continue that conversation that started 2 weeks ago on production and distribution. And I'm grateful that we also have the Inspector of Pumps here today as well. Before we begin, I do want to give you some numbers because this is meant to be an interactive program. So you can call us in the studio with your questions or comments. 3 numbers. Here they are. The first, 465-1977. The second, 465-1903. And the third, 662-8674. With that said, let's begin our conversation. So as I indicated, I have 2 lovely people beside me, and I want to get them to do some talking. So I'll start with Ms. Jean-Baptiste. I want you to briefly outline your role at the Water Services Department, and then we'll head to Mr. Francis.
Good morning, everyone. I am Assistant Water Engineer at the Water Services Department, responsibility for water distribution and supply. So whether it's the surface water, groundwater, desalination water, I'm managing the systems and making sure the water resources are spread throughout the island.
Okay, good morning, Ridoland. My name is Ian Francis, Inspector of Pumps / Production Distribution Manager. My responsibilities are to maintain all pumps, generators, responsible for maintaining the levels in the aquifers, the levels in the tanks, and also assisting Ms. Jean-Baptiste in production and distribution.
All right, there has to be some sort of multiplicity factor operating at the Water Services Department, because I heard you rattle off a lot of things, and I'm thinking there has to be a lot of you to go around. As we know, this is a very telling time for the state of water in St. Kitts and Nevis, and also the Water Services Department and its handling of those affairs. So with that said, I do want to ask Ms. Jean-Baptiste to briefly explain the state of Water Services Department with respect to the supply and demand. And we touched on it a little bit last time, but for the benefit of those who might not have heard, please.
So currently, demand exceeds supply in some areas. In some areas, we do have 24/7 water supply from New Guinea all the way to Limekiln, Keon, Otleys. For some areas, we do have shortage.
I think that was a point, and I'd like to pick up on that. That was something that I have said around the office, not necessarily sure I've said it on air, but I'm glad that you mentioned it. A lot of times when we see the schedules published, we don't necessarily realize that there are some areas, to your point, that seemingly have water or should have water around the clock. And I'm really glad that that was said by you, not me, because now the public can appreciate that it's not every area on the island that seems to be suffering that shortage.
No, definitely not.
All right, great. One of the things that we talked about the last time, and again, time ran us down, you shared some very exciting news, and I'm going to bring you in on it. Last time when we were here together, we were talking about the aerial drone survey that was taking place with a view to identifying wells on the island, drill sites on the island where wells could be dug. And obviously that would mean that we should get more water into our system, into our networks from those. And the very exciting news that you shared at the time was that there were roughly 8 drill sites, potential drill sites that were identified, potential drill sites that were identified, and that's important. But it was very, dare I say, significant,
Of course.
because we heard that the water manager at the last press conference on July 5th, had said that this aerial drone survey should see the identification of roughly 10 to 13 drill sites. So that we have identified 8 of those potentially is a very remarkable achievement in what I consider to be a very small window of time. So let's talk about that. One of the strategies being used, obviously, is to increase access to wells through drilling. So what can you tell us about how those sites are identified?
Yes, so we did a hydrogeological survey, and it used drone technology to scan the subsurface to identify where water is underground. So the experts in the field came on island and they completed the survey. So we're just waiting on the final report, and we already identify some areas where we can get a high yield of water underground.
And again, for repetition, because I think it bears repeating, those areas are primarily in the northern
Yes.
part of the island because there is more rainfall.
Yeah, more
There.
rainfall.
All right. So as we continue this, well, you've already said it. They've scanned, they've identified. I won't get into the technicalities of it. They are the experts. They know how they've identified, and
Yeah.
we're grateful that they have. But I really want to talk about what the Water Services Department might be doing to ensure that with the identification of those drill sites, how can we be sure that there will be a longevity that would be secured from that they last, that they give us water for a long time?
So when the well is drilled, we conduct some tests, well drawdown test and quality test, and we look at the aquifer, how long it takes to recharge as well. Ian can share some more about this test we do.
Please.
Yeah, well, we do different tests. We try most possible not to extract more than what's going on, but because of issues with the rainfall, we know that's not really possible at this time. So we try different things with like shearing. We are in the process right now of diverting one of our wells from the King Collins Highway to Monkey Hill to shear water to Monkey Hill. We are in the process of doing a chunk main. That means just running pipes right around the island so you could shear water from one spot to have more to the next. But as I said, we try not to extract more, but sometimes it's impossible not to extract more because the aquifer is being replenished slower than we extract. So, but we do different tests to make sure that we have enough water there and that we don't have salt water intrusion.
Yeah.
That was another point that we discussed very briefly last week as to how you drill and how you ensure that there is no saltwater intrusion per se. I want to pick up on something you just said, Ian, because obviously that chunk main that you're doing, that interconnection, that seems to be one of the answers to ensuring that areas that have been without water can get a regular supply. Where are we in that process?
Well, the last time I think the farthest we reached was St. Paul's, but we have to do some changes because of some of the issues with the piping in St. Paul's, that there leaks in the head, so we have to take them out and put in some new ones. We are to Cairn this way, so we're actually using water from Cairn right now because they have enough water, and we're sending it back to Keys and Canada Estate because they have enough water now. So we're actually using water from Cairn to go back.
Okay, great. So that's an advantage. That's progress, definitely. And obviously, one of the things that I wanted to discuss with Mr. Jean-Baptiste, and I'm really glad that you're here to shed even more light on it, was that interconnectivity, those interconnectivity projects, forgive me, that seem to be one of the answers to addressing the shortfall.
Yes.
All right. So let's continue the conversation this way. In terms of interconnection, am I correct in saying that we want to ensure supply reliability and perhaps even supply flexibility? And I'll explain what I consider to be flexibility, and you will tell me whether I'm on the right track.
Thank you.
By flexibility, I'm imagining that, and I also know that we've had instances in the past where obviously we've had to divert water from one source to another. So I would think that that is included in that flexibility.
Yes, definitely.
All right. So Ian just said that we are progressing nicely. From my experience and my interactions with your colleagues, I'm aware that there are certain periods when there would be, let's say, a peak demand for water. How do you think, how has the Water Services Department been able to assess being able to cater for the public, even in times of peak demand? Is that something that is under consideration? Is that something that we don't have to worry about with the implementation or the, let's say, the commencement rather, of the desalination plant investor, along with everything that you've already said?
Well, with the desal, it's a plus towards the water services because, as I say, even though we are diverting one well to Monkey Hill, when the desal comes on stream, we'll also have more wells that we can do other things with, helping out Alois, which is we know is a big problem. So we could divert wells from that because the amount of water that we'll be getting from the desal will be enough to supply Bass Bay, Frigate Bay, Birdrock. So we could divert some of the wells to Alois to help Alois because we know Alois supplies a big area.
Okay.
So we could do that.
So I suppose that answers one of the questions that I neglected to ask the last time that I was here. That question actually was posted on our social media page. It came in via private message, and it was a person asking whether or not Buckley's would have water supply or steady water supply when the desalination plant comes on stream. And I suppose you just answered that question.
Yeah, we are working on 24 hours. It will help when it comes on stream.
Okay, that's very good to know. So again, I do want to throw the numbers out to our public. We have a few moments left in today's program. Feel free to weigh in. Feel free to ask your questions. 465-1977, 465-1903, and 662-8674. If you're anything like me, you won't let them get away without hearing from you. That's if you're like me. If not, well, we'll just keep the conversation going. All right, so I do want to talk now about more on interconnection and also whether, forgive me, more on interconnection and also whether there are things that we've not yet said that the public needs to know about in terms of interconnection or even other things that would help bridge that shortfall.
Well, in terms of interconnection, when there's like a storm or drought, and our surface water is affected, we can also use groundwater or desalinated water to send to these areas that have been affected. So the interconnecting system will be very beneficial to everyone island-wide.
Okay, well, that's definitely wonderful to know. I suppose this is one of those things where I'll ask you for your personal opinions, not that you need to do any research to answer my question, but desalination is a novel concept for us, and it is in line with a lot of other things that you're doing to ensure that we maximize the benefit from that. So you've worked in water services for multiple years, individually and collectively. You've attended training sessions in the region, perhaps even outside of the region. Where does St. Kitts and Nevis stand relative to other Caribbean nations as far as you've been able to glean from your experience, particularly as it comes to water services department's implementation of a desalination plant, as well as some of the other things that you're doing?
Some islands across the Caribbean, like Antigua and Barbados, is very reliant on desalination. I think Antigua is 100% desalination, so it's not a new concept in the Caribbean. So in St. Kitts, we should be comfortable with the idea of the desalination plant.
All right, well said. Anything to add?
Yes. We in St. Kitts just have to get accustomed, and now we don't like change in St. Kitts. And when we hear this, a lot of people think a lot of different things, but it's actually 100% potable water. Think about island purified water, the process that the water goes through, and then it come back. So it's similar to that. It goes through a process to get rid of the salt and the other, and then it come back to pure water.
All right. And well, that's important to note. And I actually, along with my colleague, got a first-hand glimpse of the desalination plant after our last show. We were taken to the facility, we walked around, and I was thoroughly impressed by the amount of work that I've seen and the progress that I've seen, and even the explanations that I was given as to how things work. Bringing it back to you a little bit, I do recall seeing quite a bit of pumps there, and I do want to ask how that affects your work, if your workload will increase because of it.
No, you won't.
Okay.
Desal, even the I'm production manager, Desal has its, I could say, own department that's run. So I mainly deal with groundwater and surface water. The Desal is a plus towards it, but the production will come out of this thing. They own management.
Do you see how happy he is? No more work for you. Okay, that's great to know. All right, so let's talk about pumps. You and I have had this discussion, Ian, before about the way that the pumps work, the fact that sometimes in certain areas they're subject to the, dare I say, the variations in electricity reliability. And what can you tell us about building that infrastructure out, or that particular piece of equipment, such that we can have a more robust network going forward?
Well, of recent time, Skeleton Water Department has been working in hand to hand. So before they do schedule maintenance, they always send us the information so we could go and start our generators, because our generators are not automotive. At this point, we are in the process of doing that, gaining what we need to do that. So most of the time when power, as long as it's not an emergency, we are on peak with our pumps, so they're actually running so we don't lose water.
Okay, well, that's good to know. Definitely, and that relationship that you have, obviously, with the corporation Skelec is important, because we're talking about utilities and they go hand in hand. There's a question that I have concerning, well, it concerns something that you said about your ability or your need to maintain levels, and getting into a little bit of the types of pumps that there might be. Just curiosity from my end as to whether or not you use booster pumps or simply transfer pumps, and if you do or if you don't, if you can explain what types of pumps you use.
Well, we use about 4 booster pumps, and those are in the Frigate by Burdock areas, because our main tanks are at Man Peak. There are people in higher elevation, so we have to boost up to them. So yeah, we use booster pumps in those areas.
All right, so for simplicity, booster simply means that you're increasing the pressure of the water going through it? Or
Booster is just, the pump is just designed to take the water from the low elevation to push it up to a tank in a higher elevation. Because remember, we do gravity feed in St. Kitts. We gravity feed from our tanks. So because they're higher than the tank, we have to boost up so to our next tank.
Is that more complicated than the normal process?
No, it's much easier.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How so?
Because you just put a pipe in the tank, it comes out to a pump, and you just push it up in the next pipe to the other tank. Rather than you have to drill a well and put down all these pipes and stuff.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, that's interesting. I love the marriage that I'm seeing here. I'm understanding more, and I'm certain that our viewers and listeners are as well. With that said, we have just enough time for final thoughts today. So here's my question to both of you. I'll give you roughly, no pressure, 30 seconds to answer it. What would you say to viewers and listeners who might not realize how much planning goes into the execution of your duties as it concerns keeping water flowing? Ms. Jean-Baptiste.
Yes, there's a lot of planning in my duty. Monitoring the water sources, the surface water, the groundwater, desalination water, and also the new projects we are ongoing as well, like the new Keon tank and the desalination plant. So yeah, in general, we plan to have 24/7 water supply in the entire island. So these new projects will definitely help in this goal. Later this year and even next year, we might meet this goal.
Good news.
Yes, just want to say big up to the staff. They're working hard. There's a lot of people that are out there 2 a.m. in the morning to make sure that you have water, and I really do appreciate their hard work. I just want y'all to appreciate that we are working, and we will continue to work for you, because water is life.
And every drop counts. That's a great way to end this week. So thank you to my 2 guests for giving us insights into the workings of the Water Services Department. I'm reminding all of you that you can get more information at our website, www.mopieUDT.gov.kn. I'm Jamie Morris, wishing all of you a great day. Bye-bye.
Water is life, 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 life. Water is life, 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 life. Do just one thing, Every drop count. Make sure you check for leaks.
leaks around your house every day. Every drop come. When brushing your teeth, don't let the water run away. Come save the water, preserve the water.